Uh, Hi guys. See a lot of familiar names in in the chat. Right? Thanks for joining, guys. So what we'll do is we'll wait for 3:30, and then we'll basically start on the dot, right? So just give another minute, for others to call, and then we can start. Right? Okay, thanks for the thumbs up, Vinod.
Hey, Balwinder.
Hey, how are you, man?
Good, good. How are you?
The new role? I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Doing well, doing well.
Yeah, I guess we can start. Okay, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for making the time to join us, for this session. So basically, this is our inaugural webinar for our Control IT series of webinars that we'll be running over the rest of the year, right? So we will definitely keep you guys posted on the subsequent webinars that we're running. And for today's webinar, basically we are going to cover the aspect of IT security, right? So quick introduction. My name is Balwinder, and I'm with Commit Solutions. I actually have responsibility for business development in the region, right? Commit Solutions has been around since 2009, and we predominantly focus around disciplines around ITSM, ITAM, software asset management, basically managing and providing visibility for IT infrastructure, especially now with the hybrid infrastructure in place, right? We have clients across the region, right? We have clients in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, and Philippines, right? So for today's session, basically, generally, so when I talk about IT visibility or IT asset management in general, any client or prospect I mean, I always ask them the first thing, it's a very simple question, right? How confident are you that you can see the full technology estate that's actually running in your business today, right? And I don't expect you guys to answer this now, but I know that, generally the answer is never a resounding yes, all right? They always either, worst case, they have spreadsheets with it there, or they have typically got different tools that providing different information, and that information sometimes has overlaps, right? And of course, that challenge is compounded further by the fact that we don't have just one infrastructure. We now have multiple infrastructure. You have on-prem, you have cloud, and that cloud can be multi-cloud, right? You have SaaS applications running in an environment. You have different types of endpoints, be there desktop computers, end user computers, or mobile devices. And all these are being used by different stakeholders or different business units, right? Now, the ability to be able to have the visibility is actually very important, right? So that question matters because incomplete visibility can have many adverse effects. Can affect cost, right? Cost that normally is avoidable. Can provide challenges around risk and security. And now with, let's say in Malaysia, we have this new cybersecurity act, so the new governance laws in place, right? And this covers almost every organization of a certain size. And regulated industries have very strong, controls as well, right? So governance is an issue. And I think the last one is the ability to make day-to-day operational decisions that affect the enterprise, right? So I think not having that visibility basically positions those challenges in most organizations. And actually, we see this a lot. I like another easy question is say, okay, can you tell me how many end user computers you have in the environment, right? Most are not able to give that answer accurately, right? Let alone the type, whether they are mobile devices, sorry, whether they are end user computers that are laptops or desktops, etc. Right? So having that visibility or not having that visibility presents a number of challenges. Right? Okay, so Flexera did some of their own research, all right, and they concluded that this is not uncommon issue. It's actually quite widespread. Right? They basically, based on their study and their analysis surveys, they found out that 74% of organizations still struggle to gain clear, comprehensive visibility of the IT assets. That's the first thing, right? And they also report that, interestingly, they report that 75% of the IT leaders recognize the risk that's created by this, lack of visibility or these gaps in visibility, right? So they know that they have a problem. They know that the visibility gaps, right? And they are actually challenged to do something about it, right? Now, Flexa also further estimates that weak visibility can actually contribute to wastage, right? And this wastage can be from a hardware, perspective, or it can be a software perspective, and can be as much as 20 to 30% waste across the IT estate. Right? That means of the amount that they spend, 20 or 30% of that could have been saved. Right? This generally could be buying licenses that are excess, right? Or it could be upgrading hardware that's not actually, outdated yet, right? And that actually is avoidable cost. That we generally call it avoidable cost. Right? And finally, 94% of IT leaders say they need better tools to extract value from their data. Right? And I can tell you that most of these organizations already have some form of tools in place. It's just that they can't consolidate or federate the information from those tools. Right? Okay. So what we'll cover together today are basically these 5 areas. All right. And again, this actually is not so much going to be just a technology-focused, deck, right? We will talk about practical challenges and approaches to address that. In fact, for the technology, I only have 2 slides of my 20 slides, right? The main idea here is to understand the challenges and what are the practical aspects to look at with regards to addressing those challenges, or where to start, and what your end game should be, right? I should take about 30 minutes to cover the whole deck. I will definitely try to get done by 4:45. And, any questions that you have, please, raise them. We will address them. Any questions that we can't address, we will definitely get back to you if we don't have enough time. Right? Okay. So first, we will look at why visibility gaps persist. What's the reason you have visibility gaps across hybrid estate, right? And then we'll talk about where the business impact shows up first, right? Not having this visibility gap, how does it affect the business and the operations, right? Third of all, we'll look at the ways why traditional approaches are no longer enough, and what IT visibility that's been implemented correctly looks like. And lastly, how we can help organizations move from this fragmented data approach to actually have information that's actionable, right? And actionable correctly and quickly. Right? So the idea here is to give you an idea or sort of a framework on how you can use this internally, right? Whether or not you have a requirement or not, or whether you already have a solution that you're thinking of, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, it gives you an idea. Like I said, it's not entirely technology focused. It looks at other aspects of implementing this as well, right? Okay, so I mentioned that, most environments now are hybrid, right? And, hybrid estates create a whole new challenge that we've been seeing for the last, let's say, about 8-10 years, right? Now, most enterprises, like I mentioned, do not have one IT estate, right? It's not the good old days where everything on-prem, right? Even those had challenges, but the challenges now has been it has been sort of magnified, right? Now you can think of, environments having many infrastructures, right? You have your on-prem infrastructure, right? You have your cloud platforms, right? And most organizations now have a multi-platform strategy. So you have 5 or 6 different cloud platforms that you can choose from. And everyone almost runs SaaS applications now, right? And like I mentioned, you have various end user devices, and you have different business services and cost centers. And I think the big challenge is that most organizations have multiple discovery sources, right? And being able to leverage these different discovery data sources, becomes an issue, right? How do you root out, replicated information, right? Like two tools discovering the same device. How do you understand, yeah, this is replicated data, I need to normalize it, right? So it's an inconsistency across these tools with the different naming standards, not understanding the ownership, not having data that's up to date, that actually presents a lot of challenges in a hybrid infrastructure. Okay, that's why many teams today don't have the complete visibility, but what they have is fragmented pieces of information. We like to use the term fragmented truth, right? Sitting at different locations with different owners. Now, not having not knowing what assets you're running in your environment provides a different challenge entirely, right? And this challenge generally is always a risk, either from a governance perspective or a security perspective. If you cannot reliably identify what is installed, where it is, what version it's on, it becomes a challenge to manage the risk that's associated with the device, right? You can actually now also compound that further by understanding, okay, when is the end of life of the device? Is it under warranty? uh, you know who's the owner? When is the next renewal coming up, etc., right? So unsupported and obsolete software can stay hidden. Vulnerability exposure is harder to prioritize, right? When a new patch is released or a new update is released, how do you figure out which devices need to be remediated, right? And all this, in one way or another, can impact business, right? So audit and compliance is another big challenge, right? Most cases, we have had clients where when they did not have the solution in place, their audits were very reactive, right? A publisher come in and do an audit, and they will then just basically not have all the information to defend themselves against the audit, right? And then you have compliance challenges, and those can be quite expensive. The idea here is that you want to be able to be proactive, when an audit happens, so that you can defend yourself and close it out with the minimum impact to the organization, right? And again, unknown IT assets are not just a IT hygiene issue; they are a governance and a risk issue, as I've mentioned. Right? Okay, so I talked about the challenges with regards to IT assets providing risks from a governance and a security perspective. I also briefly mentioned the issue with regards to the waste that happens with hidden assets that are in plain sight. Right now, weak visibility can drive avoidable spend. Right, so the key thing here is that spend actually could have been avoided. Right, that usually shows up as redundant application spend, vendor overlap, software sprawl. I mean, you can actually start SaaS. It's a good example. Uh, Applications that don't need license keys with very complex licensing metrics can very quickly, get deployed, without control. And in many cases, some of these are either not used at all or underused and become forgotten assets. Now, without a trusted baseline on what you actually own and should be using, it becomes very difficult to optimize your environment, right? So the optimization doesn't exist. And instead of being strategic with your renewals and your, signing up of new enterprise agreements and purchases of new assets, you're actually reacting to how, you do your, purchases or your investments, right? And again, of course, like I mentioned, if it's an audit, then it becomes a bigger challenge. So the cost issue and the risk issue are very closely linked, right? So that both need to be looked at together for it to be addressed appropriately. Okay. All right. So what happens if, let's say, you decide, okay, I'm not going to do anything, right? So what's the challenge of doing that, or what's the cost of doing that? Now, doing nothing is not only going to lead to waste. It's going to make decision making weaker and slower. Right? You don't have all the information you need to make informed decisions. So either decisions will take a long time to be made, or the decisions that are made are not in the best interest of the organization. Right? Now, when teams spend too much time researching and reconciling data, it becomes a challenge as well. A lot of companies, what they do is they say, okay, I just need a CMDB to actually address this requirement. But CMDB typically is only as good as the data that's put into it, right? Now, audits, like I say, remain effort heavy, right? Downstream systems like CMDBs are affected when your upstream data is weak, right? And wanting to do a refresh in your environment, then becomes a challenge when you don't have all the information. And cost decisions are made with less confidence than they should. So, like someone, when a publisher comes in and says, "This is what you need," you just take what they give you to be safe, as opposed to getting really what you actually need and nothing more, right? So this is where visibility gaps start to become an enterprise performance issue. Any questions, any comments at this point? Okay.
No, not at the moment.
All right. Okay, so typically there are two ways organizations do this at a rudimentary level, right? Classic one, I'm sure you agree, is spreadsheets, right? I mean, everyone basically uses an Excel spreadsheet to store some sort of information. And that's actually very common in the IT infrastructure side as well, right? The others are situations where you have different types of tools that are doing different things. Let's say I have a tool that, like SCCM, let's say, that's managing my Wintel infrastructure, right? My Wintel servers, my, end user computers. I have something like, let's say, BigFix, that's managing my Linux environment, etc. Right? Now, the challenge with these different point tools is that they are run by different teams. Reporting is done within that team, and there's no connect between the different data sources. And I mean, it's understandable because the information that it's collecting is very specific. It's in a specific format. It recognizes devices in a certain naming convention that may be different, right? And it's quite focused on a specific set of the infrastructure. So spreadsheets, disconnected discovery tool, it's not an issue that they are not being used properly. So it's not effort issue. The issue is that the environment that's become so complex and hybrid has outgrown those methods of tracking data. Typically, the data that's collected is not up to date. It's still, we have situations where the client has updated their spreadsheet. As soon as the spreadsheet is updated, the information in there is already outdated, right? So manual efforts generally scale badly, right? And partial answers create, sort of a false confidence. You sort of think, oh yeah, okay, I've got everything information I need, but it may not be the case, right? And this actually problem continues to evolve as the hybrid infrastructure gets, more difficult. And the interesting thing is that this is not a people problem, right? It's not because the people are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's more how the infrastructure is built and the tools, that are disparate that are collecting the information. Now, as I mentioned, some organizations rely entirely on their CMDB. Now, CMDB can be a very valuable tool, right? But only when the data that's being fed into that CMDB to build the CIs and the relationship between the different CIs is a very verified and trusted data. Now, again, Flexera did some analysis and they reported that 71% of IT organizations that aim to centralize IT data to a CMDB, only 75% of those who implemented one do not receive meaningful value from it. Right? So about 25% receive meaningful data. That means they've implemented it properly and are getting the information that they want. And the challenge here is not so much the implementation of the CMDB, but the data that's coming from upstream is generally weak, right? It's the discovery is sort of duplicated. There's no normalization, right? Meaning that I don't say, okay, let's say for example, these two pieces of hardware discovered by different tools actually the same. I will just treat it as one. I deduplicate it. So that's what we mean by normalization. Same application to software as well. I have so many different versions of Microsoft Office standard running in my environment, but I normalize everything to say in total, this is the number of licenses I need for Microsoft standard. When you have different tools and when your solution doesn't have the intelligence to do that, then that becomes a challenge, right? And of course, when you do the normalization, rationalization, that's where you have enriched data, right? And this enriched data can then be fed into the CMDB. So the challenge is not so much the CMDB as being the problem, it's the quality of the data that's been put into the CMDB. Okay? And again, I mean, in our experience, we have come across a number of implementations where the organization CMDB data is not up to spec, right? I've only had one telco where they really had their CMDB data spot on because the environment had all the necessary tools in place, to pull in the information. Right? Okay, so how do you approach IT visibility, and what do we recommend with regards to the steps to do this, right? So okay, the goal is not actually putting in more raw data, meaning that I put in a solution and start drawing information from the infrastructure. So that's not what we're trying to provide, right? What we are trying to provide is a decision-ready data, right? That meaning that we look at what you've discovered in your infrastructure, right? We pull that information into a central environment, normalize it into a common language, right? Which is understandable, has deduplicated information, and then provides the capability to enrich that data, right? With then having an understanding of the life cycle of the asset, the risk context of the asset, what is that asset connected to, and when you understand the connections with the different assets within the organization, you understand the business meaning of that asset, right? Meaning that these assets, group of assets, are supporting these business services. So you're basically turning data into insight and action, right? Again, not by putting in another tool to do its own discovery, but by leveraging the data that already runs in the environment, right? Now, you may have a question saying, okay, what about data that's not being collected? So there are strategies to then address those gaps with other solutions that are available to then be able to get a complete end-to-end ability to pull the data that's needed, that's running in your environment. Okay? So effective visibility here then serves the operators, the governance teams, the security folks, and the different business units within the organization. And actually, interestingly, these business units may not necessarily be IT and security. It could be your finance folks, it could be your CFO, etc. Right? So it covers a whole range of different stakeholders within the organization. All right, so the solution that actually we position for this is called Flexera IT Visibility, or we call it ITV. Right? So the platform is what we use to support this model that we are describing within the framework. So at a practical level, it actually helps turn fragmented discovery data into a trusted, verifiable, usable view of your IT estate. Now, typically, it pulls information from multi-source discovery tools, right? And normalizes that information to create a more consistent asset language, right? Meaning that I have deduplication of the information. I have a common naming identifier for all the different assets. So everyone then starts speaking the same language with regards to the asset information. And then the lifecycle enrichment happens, where you can now start looking at stronger refresh information, risk prioritization of what needs to be upgraded, what needs to be made end of life because it's going to be end of support, etc. And the reporting that's provided by the solution actually is very granular, where it helps teams make very informed decisions in a manner that's a lot faster, right? So fundamentally, that's what the solution provides. So let's look at this in a bit more detail. Okay. So at a high level, the capabilities that matter most, from the ability to be able to pull in information and normalize that discovery information is provided by a component within Flexera ITV called Technopedia. Right? So Technopedia is actually a sort of you can think of it as a sort of the intelligence that drives ITV. Right? It has the ability to recognize 5 million plus different products, right? And this gets updated, every day. I think Flexera says that they have around 4,500 daily updates. And you must remember that these updates are not just for software, but they are for hardware as well. And the hardware part is actually quite critical because in all organizations, the biggest challenge with regards to end of life and end support is associated with hardware, right? And again, the reason for that is because there are many iterations of specific models. Models are being OEM by other different products. They are white labeled hardware boxes, etc. So there is no consistent or strong data on what the end of life and end of support of hardware is, right? So Technopedia actually has that enriched data available to do that really well. Okay? And then from a vulnerability lens perspective, it uses Sequoia intelligence to provide information around vulnerability, right? And this then actually gets fed into dashboards, reporting solutions. There's API access to pull information from existing tools, and there's also the capability to do integration downstream, like into, let's say, for example, ITSM solutions, etc. Okay, so now let's sort of look at the solution in a bit more detail. Like I said, I'm not going to go into technical details. This is my last slide on ITV, and then we'll talk about next steps. But if you talk about the technology intelligence within ITV, right? So the way the platform works is that it looks at combining what Technopedia provide to give you a complete picture of your hybrid IT environment so that you can make the best decisions to drive IT initiatives and grow business, right? So most organizations already have a variety of systems of record, right? So the last thing that we want to do is put in another system of record, meaning that put in another solution that's going to pull data itself, right, into another repository. That's not what we're going to do. We want to leverage what's already in the infrastructure, use ITV to pull the information and make sense of the information, right? Because most organizations already have these solutions in place, right? So those systems are actually helping to power users in each function, get their day-to-day work done. So what we want to do is now try to pull that information, right, and provide a system of insight that then gives the necessary data for each of those users, and also provide a holistic view of your technology infrastructure. Right? So that's what technology intelligence platform does, right? Combined with IT visibility, Technopedia, the capability on risk and governance with Sequoia, you now have a system of insight for your entire hybrid IT estate, right? So it's like thinking of it as a next level up data and analytics platform that is can be cloud native. You can actually have it running on cloud, or you can run it on prem. It has very strong APIs, and it also provides a very scalable solution, right? So it can be a large enterprise as well. It provides the scalability to be able to pull that information in, right? So if you look at the bottom of the slide, those are some of the data sources that ITV integrates with to pull information into its repository. So you can actually treat the ITV as as a sort of a data lakehouse for your technology assets, right? Which has a very advanced analytics engine, right? It uses actually Power BI, to provide that visualization. And the main benefit here is that we are trying to put forward an idea of federating your asset data that's been collected in your infrastructure. And I think the last key point is around the extensibility of the technology intelligence platform. We recognize other systems of records are in use, right? That's given. So what we do is we try to provide integrations into those third-party tools and have an insight into their data sets, pull the information out, right, on your tech estate, so that we can then provide highly impactful, reports, dashboards, information, etc. Right? So that set of tools that we integrate to is quite comprehensive. If anyone's interested, reach out to us. We'll send you the link for that information. Okay. All right. So I've shared the challenges with regards to getting visibility of your IT infrastructure. I've shared a little bit about the approach to it and the technology we use. Now, what's the role that the Commit solution plays in delivering ITV in ASEAN, right? So as I mentioned, our background when we started was around systems management, IT asset management, IT service management. Frankly, we were predominantly on IBM technology until most of the solutions were divested by IBM. And then we moved to new technologies to support this. And one of the solution portfolio we carry, of course, is Flexera and Snow. Right. So we actually have very strong, presence in the market for these areas, right? So technology creates the potential, but the technology is not enough, right? You need to be able to gain value from the technology by having it, implemented correctly. So what we like to do is we like to take an advisory-led assessment approach, understand the client's challenges, and look at what the best solution and implementation approach would be for that particular client. Right? And then, of course, we proceed to do the implementation. And from our perspective, in many of our clients, it doesn't end there, right? Now, in many cases, the skills needed to run some of this are difficult to come by. Right? And in many cases, in organizations, they don't have the resources or the skills to do all of this. So what we do is we basically complement, their resources and their skills by providing, managed services and post-implementation support services. So from a client perspective, they benefit from this support and continue to use the solution. So their sort of investment in the solution is protected, and they continue to then see value from the solution. And again, from our perspective, obviously, is that we then sort of become a partner to that client, and they become a long-term client for us, right? Not just a one-off client. So that's basically our approach to delivering these solutions, which generally can be quite complex, for our clients in the ASEAN market. Okay, just a couple of scenarios. Now, again, these are not cast in stone, right? I have a regional bank scenario and a telco scenario, right? And some examples of how those kind of clients would benefit from a solution like ITV, right? So if you imagine a regional bank, which has a fragmented set of tools across its infrastructure being leveraged by different business units. Large enterprises always have audit pressures. Like for example, banks in Malaysia, they have the RMIT requirement from Bank Negara. They generally get audited by their major publishers, right? The big guys would audit them, right? And generally they don't have the relevant processes in place to be able to support the ability to do that. So from our perspective, what we want to do is we want to provide a solution that provides better visibility to help them establish a very clear asset baseline to start with. So once an asset baseline is available, they have confidence in that asset baseline. The next step is for them to speed up an audit preparation. In fact, the idea here should be, instead of waiting for an audit to happen, be ready to actually, be audit ready basically. And like I mentioned, end of service, end of life is very key, right? I mean, that should be a priority. And our solution, we believe, provides that capability. And again, from a bank perspective, having the ability to understand, what assets are end of life and end of support, and when I need to prioritize the decommissioning of those assets. Right? So all this actually then gives, the bank more confidence in what they are doing with regards to their IT asset environment, and are able to then, provide insightful reports, to different stakeholders and external, stakeholders as well. So again, this is an example of Flexera customer and the benefit that they derived from implementing the solution. So instead of actually taking what's it, months? Is it? Yeah, taking a month. They are able to now actually do the reports that they need in a matter of minutes. Right. So similarly, we can look at the telco environment as well. Right. Again, telco environments are complex as well, right? But they typically have different challenges compared, to a bank, right? Generally, they are large as well, but they're typically distributed. They have a lot of multi-vendor environments. In many cases, they have a lot of OEM assets as well that are provided by their solution vendors as a total solution, right? And having visibility of that would be critical as well. Software support is always challenge, life cycle complexity. Having a reliable and trustworthy CMDB is also important, right? So having a solution like ITV in place will be able to better support all this. Right? So in that context, it will provide stronger visibility, enables a clearer view across distributed assets, better normalization and rationalization, especially of software assets and hardware assets in some aspects, right? But rationalization of software assets are really critical. Understanding what I own against what I'm using to make sure that I don't have any over or under licensing, right? And I think at the end of the day, basically this gives you a very strong, enhanced, full life cycle asset management of your IT infrastructure. Okay, so what are the key outcomes that you can expect when you implement a solution like ITV, right? So again, this information that we sourced from Flexera. So Flexera cites that a 60% reduction in productivity costs of doing research on technology, an 80% reduction in efforts spent on managing audits, be it internal by regulatory bodies or by external publishers. And more importantly, getting 4 to 5 times ROI realized by the average enterprise customer when you are actually implementing a solution like ITV, right? Again, this sort of expected outcomes, they're not a blanket promise, right? So we want to clarify that upfront. But we strongly believe that this benefits are achievable, right? We have seen this in practice, and we really believe that our clients can benefit from this sort of savings. Right? Okay, so again, why commit specifically for ITV, right? Now, it's not just the solution that's important, right? I mean, you obviously would need a partner with the necessary skills that can take the solution, understand your environment, understand your processes, what processes need to be put in place, how you need to refactor your resources, and then take all that and turn the visibility of your infrastructure into outcomes, right? So that's where we bring our practical skills and past experience and take a consultative approach to lead this engagement with our clients, right? And again, the benefit here is that we want to be able to help our clients achieve those goals so that they then become a long-term partner for us, right? So I guess, I'm sure you've heard of this, but the aim here is to connect technology, process, and the different stakeholders within the organization so that the outcomes are what makes sense for the client. Okay. And again, I mean, not just from an ITV perspective, we do this for all our offerings and initiatives. Okay, I'm actually almost at the end of my deck, right? If anything or any of this resonates, right, as a practical next step, we are offering a complimentary ITV discovery workshop for anyone on the call that's interested. Now, again, this is not just a generic sales meeting, right? It's more, and it's not also a product demo, sorry, right? It's more a focused working session to review your current state of visibility gaps, and then sort of align and come up with a priority roadmap on what would be the relevant use cases and stakeholder goals within your organization. So we can look at identifying likely data sources, what are the constraints of pulling information from those data sources, where are the gaps that may need other tools, and more importantly, based on the roadmap, then outline what are the quick wins, right? Again, no commitment, right? Completely free of charge. But we believe that this actually then will give you a good idea of where you're at and what you need to do to be where you want to, right? And of course, if what we've discussed feels familiar in your environment, the discovery workshop is the simplest way to move, from being worried about your challenges to having clarity about how to address them in the short term and medium term and long term. Okay. So do reach out to us if you have an interest, and we are happy to explore. Okay, so my final slide, right? So the key takeaways, right? I'm not going to, like go into all this in a lot of detail, but and again, we're happy to share this deck with you and any other information you may need. But if anything, these are the key takeaways for you to remember from our session today, right? And yeah, we are 4 minutes away from ending, so good timing. Okay, first takeaway is that visibility is now ability that is really critical, right? It's not just an IT admin task. It's almost like a business capability that is critical. That's the first one. The second is that spreadsheets and disconnected tools are not the right approach to addressing complete visibility. Weak upstream data is no longer reliable enough, especially for a hybrid enterprise environment. And last of all, right, is that the right platform, having the right partner with the right processes in place can accelerate your time to value with regards to achieving, end-to-end IT visibility. Right. Yeah, that's my last slide. Any questions?